Hello and welcome to Red's Business and Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Barnes, and today we're sitting down with Rhian Greenway, who's the current CIO of City Beach Group and has been doing that for 13, 14 years. Looking forward to getting some insights out of Rhian on cybersecurity. There was a breach we went through some years ago and what learnings from back then, and technology in retail, and future thoughts about the Metaverse and cyber insurance and some other things. So look, Rhian, really appreciate you coming in. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, let's start off with your background way back in IT. Okay, so after studying, where did you go?
Look, studying's an interesting. I put that on hold for 8 or 9 years before I moved up to Queensland from Victoria.
Yep.
Looped back with what we called an industry placement at the time, which was a little bit sketchy in terms of working somewhere that did IT and then using that to get through your last 2 units. So I got through that, I think back in... I can't remember, maybe 08, years just before my credits expired. And then actually found it really hard to break into IT roles in Queensland.
Why was that?
I'm like, where should I start with that story? I ended up, so for a long time I had a retail computer business down in South Tweed.
Okay.
So we serviced like the small, medium business, dental surgeries, all kinds of stuff with whatever they needed, as well as like the local community. And so I got to the point where I was like kind of fed up with that. Being a 50-year-old man behind the PC counter didn't really appeal to me too much. I actually went recently to MSY out near Brendale, and it was like flashbacks to yellow painted walls and boxes and all kinds of horrible stuff.
Yep.
So after leaving that, I got into Cisco networking for a little bit with probably not a startup at the time. Company called Silver Telecom down in Varsity Lakes. They ran all the fiber through back in the day. And after leaving there, I was like, oh, that corporate sounds like a great idea. And every interview was like, do you know how to use Active Directory? And I was like, it's pretty easy. They're like, yeah, but like unless you have 3 years experience resetting passwords, we can't possibly give you a job.
Right.
I was like, are you sure? I'm like, that's pretty easy stuff. And they're like, no, you need 3 years. So I bounced around through a few different bits and pieces and eventually landed at City Beach.
Yeah, right. No doubt that's probably different now, having any IT experience and wanting a job in IT. I think most businesses are screaming for people. It wouldn't have been need 3 years of AD experience before we hire you, I'd say.
No, look, we take a lot of store-based staff now. So a lot of our good success stories in the department at City Beach are, my infrastructure guy started as a stockroom controller, I think.
Yeah, awesome.
At Garden City years ago. And so, he came across, he's now got more degrees than he knows what to do with, but, he's deep in the space. We've recently had a young guy come over from WA to join the team. So in the support desk, we try to rotate that through and grow those internal resources. Yeah,
that's really cool. So starting from retail, so they got experience with the brand already and what the stores do, then starting IT, whatever, they just come into your team.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. So what was City Beach IT like 14 years ago when you first started?
Old is the best way to put it. I remember when we had the little retail store, we had our own PC systems. The company that owned it previously did a lot of work on Corridor Drive back in the day doing remediation works. And so they built this whole suite of point of sale, e-commerce, the whole lot. And so I left that and ended up at City Beach where we had a DOS-based inventory management system and a quirky Delphi 7 POS system. And I hadn't worked in a lot of other retailers at that point in time, but I knew that that wasn't kind of modern tech.
Yep.
And we ran that for a long time. Like, to be fair, City Beach adopted early technology, but probably ran that a little bit too long. Got to the point where it was just too hard to plug things in. People care about real-time stock levels, real-time interactions between systems. And we're just at a point where we couldn't do anything. A 3-week body of work would take 8 months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So then you obviously went in and tried to fix that problem. And then was it a full internal IT support team when you started at City Beach?
Yeah, look, we had 3 people in the IT support team and 2.5 developers at the time when I started.
Yeah, right, okay. And then today, how big is your IT team?
Closer to 15, I think.
Yeah, right.
Support team has grown a little bit, but we've now got data analytics. We've got a functional consultant in our ERP space. We've got developers, you name it, we've kind of got one of everything. I swore we wouldn't have developers ever again.
Yeah.
But I landed a really good guy that's been a godsend for us over the past 12 months.
Well, that's the hard thing, right? Finding a good developer.
Yep.
And then documenting properly. We won't go down there. Look, let's pivot to. I know you said you were comfortable sharing this. The cyber breach that happened at City Beach 3 years ago. Do you want to explain for the audience what happened back then? I have some follow-up questions after that.
Yeah, for sure. Unlucky series of events is probably the best way to put it, right? So we suffered 2 incidents within a 24-hour period, unrelated, which is the strangest part, I guess.
Wow.
So Office 365 email breach, fairly well-crafted email for a rental agency, I think it was. One of our younger team members was looking for a house and, thought it was an application form for the real estate agent, popped it up, Office 365 login box, and, next thing you know, we're in a bit of hot water. So, we didn't think too much of that at the time. I mean, the kind of issues that popped off the back of that fairly quickly, like, within half an hour, didn't seem anything overly suspicious at the time. Reset passwords, all the normal stuff, but nothing really seemed too far out of line. Obviously was.
Yeah, so it's what happened. So the emails got compromised, and then how bad did it get? Was it like a full lockdown ransomware, or was it just hold some of your data at ransom, or what happened exactly?
Yeah, so look, for that one, it kind of wrapped itself up a little bit, and that was on the Friday afternoon.
Okay.
And so 2 a.m. Saturday morning, whole collection of automated alerts that should come through for different processing overnight just didn't arrive. So spider sense kind of weird things, decided to log in and check everything, and that's when we found the second Easter egg, right, which was a ransomware attack.
Yeah.
Lucky that I woke up would be the overarching thing is that
you woke up at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow. Just spidey senses tingling.
Yeah. The old software we had used to fail a lot at night, and literally 2 a.m. was kind of the witching hour, and so kind of in a routine from 10 years of that.
Wow.
So it just didn't feel right. Got up, had a look. We were missing the emails that we expected. Checked those core applications, and they seemed to be humming along. Couldn't get to the mail server. Couldn't get to a few other things. Found a few things that freaked us out a little bit, and pulled the pin on everything.
Yeah.
Shut it all down remotely that we could, and then rallied the troops, and all arrived at the office maybe an hour later.
Yeah, at 3 a.m.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, we actually hard unplugged things.
Yeah. Yep.
And shut everything else down. Yep. And then called the boys in from Hopgood Gannon at the time as our legal team, and very soon after that had the McGrath-Nicol guys on site for the forensic side of things. But there's nothing quite like logging into a server that's been fully ransomwared and wondering if the first part is really? Nah, that can't be right.
Yeah.
And then you log into something else, you're like, oh, hang on, this doesn't look right. And then you realise that you've got a problem that you need to address.
Yeah, because at that point you've been looking after City Beach IT for over a decade already before that breach, right? So you'd have been so used to logging in there and seeing things working for so many years. Yep. So was that was the first breach?
So they both occurred at the same time. So we had the email breach
separate.
on the Friday,
right.
And the unrelated ransomware on the Saturday morning.
Wow.
I think it was Star Wars weekend, May the 4th, 2020.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
So 2020, so that would have been COVID time as well. So probably the financial constraints of COVID for retail stores at that time would have also had a play, and I guess managing would be going, oh, what's next, right?
Well, you just don't know how far it's gone, right?
Mm.
And so the first thing is we know we've got 60 plus stores. What impact is there? We can see quickly from the head office estate what isn't working. It's how far could that get out? And in the background at that point, we kind of just pushed the email thing to the side. We're that couldn't be a problem. And through that investigation piece, we actually found out that the email was probably our larger problem in terms of being a compromised mailbox that had a lot of personal identifiable information in it.
Ah, right, okay.
And so, you can look us up on the list of people that have been popped in the past couple of years.
Yep.
Very good response, though, from the legal team on that. And I think the quickest at the time case had been wrapped up externally for the governing body.
Right, so how fast did it get wrapped up?
I think we wrapped that up within 4 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Once you know what you're looking for, it's pretty easy.
Yep. Shout out to the guys over at McGrath-Nicol and Hopgood Gammon. We've had both of them on the show. Two members from Hopgood Gammon. And then we've had Rob from McGrath-Nicol on the call already. So shout out to those guys doing their job very well.
It's still disturbing when they call. We chat and we catch up, but whenever the phone rings,
oh right,
the first thing that is Oh, no, we must be good.
Yeah. Please tell me he wants to chat. So when that event happened on the Saturday morning and when the rest of the City Beach team woke up, what was the mentality with staff at that time?
Look, from the IT team, it was really just all hands on deck. So we kind of set the bad signal out, got everyone up. Everyone came in obviously nervous and kind of drip fed in over the days they were relevant to what we're trying to do. And I think we had the rest of the leadership team on site by 8 a.m. as well.
Yep. And what were they saying, out of curiosity?
Look, we all kind of just bunkered down in the boardroom, turned into a little mini war room.
Yep.
Everyone was super supportive. Everyone had known the challenges of the environment over the years, and it was just a matter of trying to work out what next. So, this is where we are. How do we make sure that we can trade? Is there any impact to trade? And if there is, how do we handle that?
Did it lock down the POS systems completely? Is all stores were down?
We were
separate.
Actually very lucky. Like I said, if I hadn't pulled the plug, we could have been in a whole different scenario, right? So I think we lost maybe 2 or 3 POS terminals out of 200 and something.
Wow.
Unplugged them, sent them back. A lot of artifacts scattered around that were annoying and they freak you out a little bit, but no major impact to that. And the e-com site was hosted externally, so a real bullet dodged on that one.
Yeah, that's really lucky that your spidey senses were tingling 2 a.m. in the morning and you went and checked, because usually the dwell time of threats in environments in Australia is like 200 days. Stuff sits there until it becomes a problem.
It's super interesting. I remember reading a lot of stuff at the time because you kind of get deep in this rabbit hole of like who else has been impacted by the same group. What could I learn? What do I need to know? And that witching hour of Friday night, Saturday morning is like favoured because so many people don't look at anything until Monday.
Yep.
And by Monday, you're totally cooked.
Yep. Internal IT teams, they're off camping or doing their own stuff of weekend, right? And then they're alert on the phone. Less importance is like during business hour, and unfortunately they're like high amount of threats from like China and Russia, and that's when they're awake prime time when Australians are sleeping or just kind of winding down. So that's not a good thing. So look, how did that incident change your management team's perspective on cyber risk?
Look, I think from the leadership team, so everyone already appreciated what the risks were. We're kind of seeing things pop up in the news and, it'll never be us kind of mentality. From an ownership level, probably pivoted that significantly. So I look back at the historical implementation of the legacy ERP, antivirus disabled because it slowed it down.
Right.
You'd turn it on, the developer would turn it off. Well, let him go, it'll be fine. And that kind of mentality creeps a little bit as well. So every person that finds that they can't do something will find some way to work around it. And so you assume you've got a fairly safe estate, but there's always someone out there that's ahead of you, right? And so, every time we come for renewal, it's like, do we really need this? Do I need to spend this money on this antivirus thing? And like you would tell hilarious stories like, well, do you like the money in your bank account? Because everyone's out there trying to get it from you. But it wasn't until this event where it was like, what's it going to take to make sure that we are safe and secure? Yep. We don't want to be in the news. We don't want to shut down. Like we need to make sure that we've got all of our bases covered. And that's we jumped the maturity level so quickly in that space from having what we thought was a good antivirus platform at the time, kind of excluding the legacy, turning it on and off, because by that time we got rid of that software. But the guys that got us, they knew how to uninstall that in a way that bypassed all the tamper protection.
Yeah.
And so, you think you're protected, but you never really are. And the layered approach now is becoming more popular and commonplace, right?
Yep.
So you plug each individual gap with an industry-leading tool to try and cover all your bases.
Yep.
And then there's still something new in the news next week that you should buy or turn on.
Yeah, we had Chris Polkinghorn, who was the ex-head of security from SwiftX, on a few weeks ago. And we asked him what cybersecurity was like 15 years ago, because he just did cyber for like 20 plus years.
Yep.
And he said it was a long password and an antivirus tool. And that was cybersecurity industry 15 years ago. And you look at it now and there's so much to it. It's gone well past like firewalls and email spam filter, right? There's so much to it. So look, the next question I got is, what was your main learnings from going through the breach?
I probably should have pushed a lot more on the security agenda previously.
Okay.
I thought we did a good job of pushing it forward. We moved a lot of stuff off-prem to try and protect against risk. But if you could wind back, I think really just being, more equipped with knowledge of what was happening in the industry and trying to make sure that everything you could possibly think of was covered. Retail's interesting in that PCI DSS is the only kind of semi-enforced compliance standard, when really there should be, something like NIST. The Essential 8's a bit weak in terms of what it wants to do.
Yep.
But there should be something out that kind of says, as a business, you must have these 10 things or 8 things in the government sense, enabled to protect yourself. And antivirus is one of those, but there's just so much more to it.
Yep.
And again, we thought secure passwords, all those things were the winning ticket. But just not enough at the end of the day.
Well, so now you think LastPass you were secure, right? and then here we are. They had the massive large-scale breach. So it sounds like there's definitely some learnings that you had from that time, and the business takes cybersecurity risk really seriously now compared to before.
I would say we do. Don't get me wrong, it's not like it's off the agenda. But you go through cycles, right? So for the first couple of years, it's like, yep, great, excellent, sign it off, put it in, do it. You get to year 3 and all the renewals start coming through because you usually do multi-year deals to,
the expensive renewals. Yep.
And so everyone is lined up with, do we need that?
Yep.
And so you kind of have to go through that
again
sales pitch again of like, all right, you remember what happened? Oh yeah, but that won't happen again. That's because we've got all these things.
Yep.
Oh, do you really need them? It's like, yes.
Yeah. And has your cybersecurity budget gone up over the years? Obviously, when the incident went down 3 years ago, it would have been like, just get us back online, tell us when you be secure, right? Did it drop off in the next year, or does it keep going up, or what happens for you?
Look, we're interesting that we're privately owned, so we don't really have budgets, so to speak.
Right.
If it's a good idea and it makes sense, business case, and go to the owners. Okay. And so for us at the moment, we're adding a few things to the stack, which we're going through that process again. We're swapping a few things in and out. It's a more open discussion now. Like, they appreciate the risk, and I think it's helped that in the past 3 years, so many people have been hit that are bigger than us, right? So if Optus can't secure themselves and Medibank, what do you do, right?
It's kind of unfortunate, but a good thing for internal heads of IT that there's all this publicity around the recent breaches, like the 2 you just mentioned, but also Black and White Cabs in Brisbane got hit a couple of weeks ago, and QUT had a scare and a breach in December. There's so much going on, which is not good that it's happening, but from an IT a decision maker in a business trying to get budget for cyber stuff, it makes things a bit easier. That's for sure.
It does, right? And that's a frustrating thing. Like, speaking to people over the past couple of years, they're like, what's the trigger point? It's like, well, it's a breach.
Yeah.
Until you actually have something that impacts the business.
Yep.
Like, it's just a hard sell.
What advice would you have for a CIO or head of IT at an internal business who hasn't had a breach before but really wants to get across the line? Full security operations, MDR, or getting vulnerability management, or whatever cyber mitigation tool it is in place?
Number one depends on the side of your team. So if you've got a large team with some good resources in-house, you can do things a little bit differently, a little bit cheaper. At the time, we didn't, so we had to outsource a lot of stuff. But I think having a really well-prepared story, it's not an argument, right? It's a journey you need to take the board, the owners, whoever it is. You need to take them from where you are to where you need to be. The Essential 8's interesting that it's a very simplified view on all of that, right? So you can talk anyone through it. It's like, okay, this one is an antivirus kind of thing. Have we got one of those? Yes, tick. Is it a good one? Oh, we don't know. All right, we'll find someone to chat to.
Yeah.
But going in with a story that you can talk them through and walk them through, and industry-specific examples of other breaches is useful too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily through the publicity, but really the impact to business. And one of the interesting things, I think it was a guy from Michael Hill's security team was talking about in an event recently. The people in the business can also be impacted by the breach. So not from my password got leaked, but what did you do necessarily to make sure that you had the right processes in your area of the business as well? And so whether that's as simple as, calling one another to make sure bank details are up to date. So, hey, Ryan, is this really your bank account?
Did you just change or not?
Well, it seems odd that it's in Hawaii. How do you want to handle your money? But I think engaging some of the other business leaders as well, what are you doing in your area to protect against a risk, and how does that tie back into cyber? Because at the end of the day, it's all kind of cyber risk now, right? It's all kind of bundled together.
It's what we do here for businesses that trust us with their technology is we put it back to the likelihood and the impact if there is a breach. But you're right, I think the two things you said there, just to recap, were aligning to a framework, which I think really helps business owners or non-technical people go, that's the framework. It's not something that this one dude told me. This is a framework of things we should have. There's some big organisation like the Australian Cybersecurity Centre created. So even though that's targeted small businesses, but so what's your advice on frameworks to align to?
We're trying to align to both Essential 8 and NIST.
Okay.
So Essential 8, like I said, it just ticks all the boxes really quickly.
Yeah.
And it gives you broad coverage. So, everything is kind of covered in there. But we have been doing like a NIST assessment. I think we're due for the next one, but trying to maintain that level of maturity. So, where we were pre is obviously very bad.
Yeah.
Where were we post? We came in with a fairly decent score given the work we'd done so quickly. But it's a more complex view on what you should be doing to maintain your business security level. So we dabble with the two. One's very easy and one requires a bit more effort.
So let's pivot a little bit out of cyber into just generally technology in retail. How important is technology, and how is it going to change the retail industry?
I've got mixed opinions.
Okay.
I mean, I'm probably not the target demographic for most retail stores. Like, I shop a bit, but I tend to online purchase what I want and, maybe hunt down a bargain somewhere.
Still retail.
It is, right? But I guess you separate the two. So you've got your bricks and mortar side of things, and then you've got your e-commerce. I don't think anyone's doing e-commerce with the view that we thought we would 10 years ago. So hyper-personalised, digital malls. I look at the original project plan for phase 2 of our e-com site, and we had some dreams. City Beach TV, our own version of the iTunes store.
Right.
Shopping in some weird Xbox mall that I don't think exists to this day, but we were going to be the first shop in there.
Wow. And how many years ago was that?
Just over 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Might be a little bit longer now. But all these crazy ideas. And you look around and none of that's really happening, right? So, YouTube's kind of stole that content space from anyone. Even if you're making your own content, that's where you're housing it. You might be linking it back. So, maintain your own infrastructure for that. Yep. Lofty dreams, right? People like Paxson over the US are doing some interesting things. We find them relevant because they're in our space. They're a youth fashion retailer over there.
What are they doing exactly?
They're dabbling in the metaverse a lot.
Right.
Heavily backed by venture capital though, right? So any idea is a good idea if it works. NFTs, Roblox or Minecraft, they've got a store where you can buy different bits and pieces for your avatar. I don't know how successful any of that is. Probably not that successful. But it's interesting, right? People buy their skins in all of the games, whether it's Call of Duty, Fortnite. People are engaging in that, that online avatar consumer behavior. So it's just an extendable step of that, right? Buy your Lucid gear and run around in Fortnite. Maybe that's the next step.
Yeah, we had Ben, the director of technology from Prison Boys College, on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he was speaking about now when you're selecting your extracurricular activities at high school, you go netball or cricket, and then video games you can select, and they have coaches that come in and coach you on that game, and run tournaments as well versus other schools. Yep. It's a full on thing. So I can see how that would tie back into if there's a City Beach branded stuff in there they could buy, and you could sponsor a team. Don't get me started on those. So how far away is City Beach from going to the metaverse?
Look, I think we're a long way.
Okay.
I haven't seen anyone else really do it right. I mean, a number of the larger brands have done some odd things in that kind of Roblox space as well. I think Tommy Hilfinger's done a range that you can buy, and not dissimilar again to the skins in the other games are trying to capture different age brackets.
Yep.
I don't think we're anywhere near that, but it'll pop up at some point in the next couple of years, right? As soon as someone gets some traction in that space, there's tangible revenue from it, everyone will be clamoring to get in there.
Yeah, I think about 12, 18 months ago, it was hyping. Everyone was talking about the metaverse, and it was kind of all these shops are going to go in there. And I think did Nike do one? I think Nike did one, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think a couple of the big brands have doubled down. Snoop bought all that land in the metaverse.
Yeah,
but it's kind of waned, right? And I don't know whether that's through NFTs kind of losing their shine, because you don't hear anyone talk about Bored Apes anymore, right?
Maybe it's because crypto tanked big time. And then here we are, the economy after that is not in a great space. So people having extra funds to spend on, City Beach NFT shirts and things or skins for people.
More great news from the RBA today.
yeah, good times. So what future innovation is the team at City Beach working on?
Look, there's a huge focus on e-com. So we launched in the US and New Zealand direct for the first time last year. So growing that US channel is high on the agenda. In terms of how we do that, the team's kind of kicking around ideas. We've got a bit of a bag of things that were put on hold late last year as we kind of got through peak. they're all bubbling back to the surface. I wouldn't say necessarily a lot of them are super innovative, but additional lines of business, right? So whether that's ship from store, we're trialing click and collect, we've got RFID backboning that. Like there's a whole collection of things that make sense.
Yep.
But you've got to see tangible results again. And RFID is a fantastic technology, right? It's really high priced to get in the game.
Yeah, right.
Particularly with a product range as broad as ours. So looking at some of the global players doing it makes sense. Like Zara, fully RFID enabled from supply chain all the way through to retail shop floor.
So when you say expensive, what are we talking here? To get RFID tag on clothes is expensive?
Yeah, you're looking at so we're tagging locally at the moment. So I've got 3 pilot stores. We tag out of our DC. It's from memory about 8 cents per tag.
Right.
And so, 20,000, 30,000.
Yep.
8
cents adds up pretty quick.
It does, right? And so you can source tag, which is great. So all your vertical product, get it tagged in China, it's a lot cheaper, or wherever you're getting your goods manufactured.
Yep.
But you need to really commit to the concept of RFID. 'Cause if you're going to do it at the supply chain, you need to get all your branded suppliers on board as well. But everything from, finding goods in store, accurate inventory, there's no other kind of guaranteed way to deliver that result.
And what's the advantage of RFIDing clothes? Is it that you know exactly which one when someone orders online? Is it the theft side in store, or like what's the advantage?
Two key things that come to mind for me. So one is a stock take cycle can be a lot quicker.
Yeah.
You can stock take a store once a week in a couple of hours, right? As opposed to maybe once every 6 months with physically scanning everything. You can wander the store quite quick.
Oh, right. Cool.
So that identifies your theft a lot quicker. Missed opportunity for products that aren't in store that customers might want. The other one is finding products, right? So if you're doing 1 hour click and collect and you can just walk around with like a Geiger counter until you find that t-shirt or the shoes or whatever it is, you can turn those around a lot quicker as well. So you've got real-time inventory in store. You can integrate it into your security system if you want to get that fancy.
Yep.
They do that, I'm trying to think where I was, Uniqlo. They've got the RFID checkout where you just drop everything into the basket.
And it just goes $32 or whatever for the stuff. And then,
unless you juggle your clothes around a lot, it doesn't pick them all up. And then you have this embarrassing moment at the front door where they're like, hey, there's a pair of shorts in your bag that we don't think you paid for.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I put them in the thing. They're like, yeah, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There's quirks to it, right? But there's so many opportunities in that space. And not that you would get rid of all your counter staff, but if you could have 6 tills manned by 2 people as opposed to 6 tills manned by 6 people, that could be 4 people on the floor giving customer service, right? So
and customer experience, right?
Exactly.
And then I guess the customer experience of just dropping clothes in a basket versus waiting in a line, scanning everything, and then checking out. Technology, I think, for customer experience is where it's at. Most people look at just automating processes, but customer experience is a big thing. But I think it sounds like we say at Red, we want to stay on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge of technology. I feel like that is the bleeding edge right now, what you just described.
Yeah, look, it is. And I mean, all the retailers doing RFID and all those add-ons really well, all fully vertical, right? And so, everything they make is their own. They're tagging everything. It all comes through tagged. Like it's a very different journey to ours, but we still see value for it in our market. Yeah.
One question, which is back on the cyber front, which I wanted to get your insights on, is cyber insurance. A lot of businesses that we speak to that are similar to your size are actually opting to self-insure and not get cyber insurance, where others are just going, don't understand technology, just throw cyber insurance at it, and others not getting it because there's multiple questions. What's your thoughts and advice on cyber insurance now?
We are insured post. So we had a portion of coverage previously, which was a drop in the ocean with what we could have been up for. We didn't pay any ransom as a thing, but there's coverage for that now, right? So certain insurers will actually cover you, paying $10 million to some random Bitcoin address in wherever. I think there's value to it, but you really need to know what you're getting for your money. We're seasonal, and so the spike in retail sales, we have to cater for that, as opposed to if you've got a flatline business where revenue is kind of the same all year, you might opt to insure differently. But you also want to make sure that if you are going to claim, that you've done all that homework, right? So back to selling to the board all the things that you need in place, whether it's internal pen testing, external pen testing, independent reviews, business continuity planning, all those things need to be in place, and they're all tick boxes on that insurance form every year. Like, do you have this? Have you tested this? And I would hate to be in a position where you've taken cyber insurance and you claim it and okay, great, where's the pen test results?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or like, can we have a look at what you had turned on, enabled, and talk us through it? And you're missing, 3 things out of your essential 8.
At that point, you just say it was in the data, got encrypted, I can't get it for you.
It's all gone.
Yeah, everything what you just said. No, you're right. That is a big problem. And I spoke to a business last week actually, and who had some gaps in their cybersecurity stack and no cyber insurance, and they actually got declined.
Okay.
Because they were like, oh yeah, well they didn't have MFA on everything they had on one application, and there was just so many gaps that the cyber insurance just turned them away. I think, so like, where do you start with that, right? But I think right now, all the cybersecurity things that you mentioned become so expensive, but the impact for someone like CDBH to get hit, which you're probably acutely aware of now, is very large. So it's worth investing in like all these tools, but it'll get to a point where all the cybersecurity tools in the world, we can get to a price where it's same as just paying the ransom once a year.
Hopefully not. I'm like, no, that could be terrible.
Yeah.
There's so much overlap in the tools as well, though. And so we went very heavy on E5 Microsoft Post, and that instantly just solved like all the gaps we had at the time. But 3 years on, like it's not a bad product, but it's not really targeted at doing anything properly, right? You've got a good antivirus component, which they call an MDR now. You've got
everything's a DR of some kind now.
Oh, exactly right. You've kind of got a secure email gateway, but not really. Like there's, Mimecast is still making a fortune selling like a barrier at the front, right?
Yep.
And so as a small business, probably not a bad investment.
Yep.
But there's so much stuff in market. You need to make sure that you're really plugging the right gap, the right tool. We're in the process of ripping out one tool, putting a new one in. We see benefit in that, and we've managed to break even on the licensing cost. But you could very quickly get in a position where you've got 30 things plugged in. They all do the wrong thing. They all conflict with one another.
Yep.
And create your own security hole, right?
Yeah. We definitely recommend for really small businesses to get business premium and leverage that as much as possible, because like the cost benefit is actually pretty damn good for small businesses. I know it doesn't really stack up when you get to the depth of cyber protection that City Beach would require, but small businesses in particular, like what it does for the $30 a month per person is pretty damn good. Look, mate, really appreciate you coming in and sharing insights around cyber and retail and where it's going and what City Beach is doing. Anything else you want to share before we close out?
No, that's it, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers.